For almost all of Earth's history, there was no memory, no record of the past. If a species got wiped out or a volcano blew its top, the event just vanished. It left nothing behind but rock and instinct. But then, about 5,000 years ago, humanity invented an external hard drive. And believe it or not, it was made of clay. So let's dig in and see how this simple invention completely rewired the world.
I want you to just picture this. Go back 4 billion years. The surface of our planet is just this chaotic mess of volcanoes, lightning, churning seas. Sure, there's life, but it's tiny, it's microbial. There are no thoughts, no stories, and absolutely no way to save information. The planet's memory is basically wiped clean with every single geological shift.
So how in the world did we make that incredible leap? I mean, from a world governed purely by instinct and what you could teach someone face to face, to the world we have now, one that's just built on these vast stores of information, where an idea can outlive any single person.
Well, the answer, and this is what's so amazing, it isn't some grand philosophical text. It's found in these simple, practical marks that were pressed into wet clay. This is where it all starts, in ancient Mesopotamia, with a 5,000-year-old solution to a problem that humanity had literally never faced before.
And that problem, ironically, was a problem of success. Yeah, you heard that right. The invention of agriculture was humanity's first huge triumph, but it created an absolute administrative nightmare.
All of a sudden, we weren't just thinking about where the next meal was coming from. Nope, we had granaries overflowing with barley, we had herds of sheep, and these little settlements were growing into the world's very first cities, like Uruk. For the first time in history, we simply had too much stuff to remember.
And this just created a massive challenge. I mean, think about it. How do you keep track of who put what grain into the community storehouse? How many jars of beer does this group of workers get? And hey, who owns that flock of sheep over there? The human brain, as brilliant as it is, it just wasn't built for this kind of data management. Society had become way more complex than our biological memory could handle.
So, what did the people of Mesopotamia do? They developed a tool. They started counting, not in their heads, but in clay. And their solution was as ingenious as it is, well, kind of strange to our modern eyes.
What's so fascinating is that they didn't just invent one universal system for numbers, like our 1, 2, 3. They created lots of specialized systems, and each one was tailored specifically to what was being counted. There was one system for animals, a totally different one for things like bread and beer, and yet another for measuring out grain.
Just think about it this way. We basically do the same thing today, right? We measure distance in miles or kilometers, weight in pounds or kilograms, and digital information in gigabytes. You'd never say, I drove 50 pounds to work. It wouldn't make sense. Well, they applied that exact same context-dependent logic to their earliest numbers. To them, counting sheep was just a fundamentally different activity from counting barley.
Okay, and this is where it gets truly mind-bending. A single symbol, say, a small circle pressed into the clay, could mean completely different things. If you were counting sheep, that little circle meant 10. But for measuring barley, that same exact symbol meant 6 units. And for measuring a field, it meant 18. Context was absolutely everything.
But counting, that was only half the problem, right? You also needed to know who was doing the counting, the trading, the owning. You needed a signature.
Long before anyone could actually write their name, they had these things called cylinder seals. These were small, intricately carved stone cylinders that you'd roll across wet clay, leaving behind your own unique, repeating impression. It was your personal mark, a stamp that basically said, "This is mine," or "I approve this deal." It was a physical embodiment of your identity and your word.
And these seals are just incredible windows into their world. The images carved on them, they weren't just random decorations. Oh no, they reflected historical reality. We see potters at their wheels, weavers at their looms, people working in granaries, priests performing rituals. They are literal snapshots of the economy and the social structure of the world's very first cities.
And archaeology shows us these weren't all equal either. When we look at graves from that time, a really interesting pattern emerges. Seals that show banquet scenes, they're often found with luxury goods like gold and silver. But seals showing contest scenes, heroes battling wild animals, those are found with copper tools and weapons. This strongly suggests the banquet seals belong to a high-status elite, while the contest seals might have been something like an insignia for soldiers or officials.
Okay, so we have symbols for numbers and we have symbols for people. But the real revolution, the quantum leap, came when someone realized you could use these simple pictures to represent something you couldn't draw at all, an abstract idea.
The crucial moment was this massive cognitive shift. Scribes started combining simple pictographs, a drawing of a person, a head, a stalk of barley, in new and creative ways. They weren't just labeling things anymore, they were actually building concepts.
And here is the perfect example of that breakthrough. They took the symbol for person, which was LU2, and they combined it with the symbol for great, which was Gal. Put them together and you get Lugal, not just a great person, but the abstract concept of a king. This was it. This was the moment true writing was born.
And once that conceptual barrier was just shattered, the applications for writing completely exploded. It started with accounting, yeah, but it quickly moved into law, royal decrees, recording history. And of course, once you can record history, you can also record stories that never happened. Within just a few centuries, this tool that was designed for tracking grain gave birth to the world's first epic poems and myths.
The consequences of this invention, an invention born from the simple need to manage surplus grain, would end up reshaping human civilization on a totally fundamental level.
And the pace of change was just stunning. In less than 1,000 years, humanity went from a data crisis to proto-writing to telling the Epic of Gilgamesh, a complex story of gods, mortals, and the search for immortality. And get this, even after the Sumerian civilization itself collapsed, their invention was so powerful that writing itself endured, adopted by countless cultures for centuries to come.
This quote from the Epic of Gilgamesh, it just says it all. For the first time, a story could be preserved perfectly, word for word, long after the storyteller was gone. Knowledge could be stored, it could be accumulated, it could be built upon. Gilgamesh could bring back a story from before the flood, and thanks to writing, that story could survive for millennia.
This is the ultimate legacy, isn't it? With writing, you can manage a huge empire by sending orders that won't get twisted and changed along the way. You can create a unified legal code like Hammurabi's. You can build a body of knowledge that transcends generations. Our modern world is quite literally built on the foundation of these ancient words.
You know, that first information storage device, that hard drive made of clay, it completely changed what it meant to be human. It externalized our memory and allowed us to build a collective intelligence. And it kind of makes you wonder, 5,000 years from now, what will they say our hard drive was? And what kind of information will they find on it?